Dzień dobry.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paweł Cywiński, and it is my great pleasure to talk about the current propaganda with Michał Kosiński from the Stanford University. Good evening to you. Michał, we can't hear you. Good evening, Paweł. Good evening, everybody. Perfect. Tell me, my first question to you. Have you got a Facebook account? I used to have one until 2 months ago, but finally Facebook locked down my account. What did you do? I did with Facebook research, and though I'm its great fan and user, but I also pointed out for many years many errors and suggested numerous improvements. And for many years, Facebook accepted that with a smile on the face, but recently they've turned a bit neurotic, so I was punished. So you only tweet? Well, I generally do not write too much. I'm not very keen on the social media as I should be. Perhaps I was born too early, because social media is something I do appreciate. But it's not in my bloodstream, but I believe that closing my account, initially I thought, well, I'll manage. But soon I realized I was out of contact with many friends. I didn't even have their phone number, especially that there is pandemic around, so it's all moved to the net. So it's a sort of another pain to the punishment you have. Well, true. In normal times, we would meet in the real life. I could get phone number. Now, I must say, it took me some time to collect the numbers, emails, not to mention that lots of pictures and memories I kept there was lost. It was sort of a proof that even in my life, I always believed not to be very much millennial guy, but it was so important. Let's begin from the beginning. If you Google Michał Kosiński, it says you won elections for Trump, previous election. No, it's not true. I used to make jokes about that, but people make it wrong story. I deal with research on privacy, and my role in that scandal was that many years before Cambridge Analytica, I published articles in papers warning against the future. And I did have my role in the beginnings of Facebook Analytics when they offered me a job. I reported that to lawyers at the university. So I'm not very much critical about Cambridge Analytica because I don't see it black and white. I see it in grayscale. We often forget that Obama was a great user of Cambridge Analytica. Hillary Clinton spent 3 times more than Trump on Cambridge Analytica. I don't think that panic is justified in many cases, but I didn't play any role in that, save for saving against the future, warning against the future. But in 2012, algorithms were patented that started to show how you can profile people from various psychological perspectives. Now, 8 years later, it's a space age in digital world, 8 years. Where are we today? We are the world is changing still faster. How much progress I've made in my own research in the first few years now could be done in a month or two, because the tools I use for my research have become far more advanced, and the computer will solve many problems on its own, when earlier that was the job for a researcher. But first of all, people start to forget that what Cambridge Analytica did was happening online and offline for quite a long time. From the very beginning of marketing, the marketer's job was to take a product or a politician or an ideology and wrap it and present it to various people in various ways so that the technology, product, or politician or ideology sold best. Now, the internet has democratized access to such technologies. When you think about wrapping products or politicians in an attractive wrapping, it was the domain of concerns, corporations, or political parties. Everybody now with a computer and several thousand zlotys at hand can achieve the goal or effect that 20 or 30 years ago was unavailable for the biggest players. Obviously, that changed the democratization for the access to personalized marketing, where the Cambridge Analytica is a symbol of, resulted in Brexit, Donald Trump, but also in Black Lives Matter, Bernie Sanders. So the players on both sides of the political spectrum use the tools, the new tools, equally effectively. And I would say that the Liberal Progressive Party is better at that. Why? Because those who vote on the left side are faster to adopt new technologies. They were the first users of Facebook, Twitter. That's why Barack Obama, 8 years before the Republicans, used such technologies like Cambridge Analytica. But luckily, these technologies are available for still more people, also those who live in smaller towns, who are less educated, who earn less. So such traditional right-wing conservative voters. So we see that the media like Facebook or Twitter that were left-wing in the beginning, full of tolerant content, are shifting to the right, which doesn't mean that the society is shifting. The point is that the tube or the magnifying glass that shows the public opinion started to include the opinion of people who initially were excluded. But big data or AI are used in politics to collect money, to put people into segments, to mobilize people, voters group, to identify shared or opposing topics, to influence emotions, to expand electoral geography, micro-targeting. Is it all? That's a great field to manipulate voters. Doesn't that kill the traditional democracy? Because you speak, it democratized the world. I wonder if it does not democratize the society because it's so sophisticated. It's quite interesting what you are saying, because you said that new technologies that allow to speak one-to-one to people, who allow to generate messages, make transmission more attractive to people, who allows to manipulate the people. But for one person, it's manipulation. For the other one, is education. If you teach people about global warming and that our operations, our activities damage the environment, it would be education for you. For a person who is an owner of a huge oil manufacturing corporation, it would be bad manipulation that intends to deprive them of the petrodollars. So we need to remember it's not that bad that politicians can speak to voters in a more direct manner without the agency of establishment, the papers. it's not that bad that people get more involved in politics. An involved voter who goes voting, who reads, who browses through news is a well-informed voter. The price for the communication, well, some time ago you needed to buy a full page in a paper that was controlled by a corporation and didn't want to sell the page or sold it for huge money. And today you can do the same, connect with the voters on Twitter and promote your views there. That is unbelievable, because all of a sudden the role of money in the politics is going down. Trump won the election on a funny budget compared to his competitors. All that is good, provided you are part of the game. If the people you do not agree with and they transfer their messages, you sitting in the editorial room of Gazeta Wyborcza or Polityka, you would see our sales is going down, our influence is reduced on the people, and people read Twitter, not the Gazeta Wyborcza or Polityka. But if you go with the time and you talk to people where they are, and they are on the social media, you get benefits, democracy. So we often hear about taking over bubbles of interest and particular topics like runners, lovers of the mountains, etc., etc. And indeed, when we speak about an individual may have great opportunities on the net, but they are encompassed in a bubble by algorithms, and we get information that matches the tastes of people in the bubble. So I cannot often agree with a person with different views, because after 10 years on Facebook, the algorithm have built great wall, and politicians take over the bubbles. They find influencer for the bubble, they generate communication, they research bubbles, what should be offered for them, and afterwards we like a hard go there. So all of a sudden you lose the bubble, we are a herd. When I was at my primary school in Poland, it was 1989 when I went to my first class. There was great discussion. In communism, everybody had to read the same book, everybody had to sing the same song, wear the same uniform. Now, finally, democracy will give us opportunity. If you, Paul, are interested in something, I will be interested in something else. We can read whatever we want. We will have more books, more diversity, more foreign language, more travels. Everybody was excited. We could have more freedom also in what we wanted to learn. And what liberals now present as the end of civilization, that Michał Kosiński is interested in something. No, we all should read the same paper, and it should be controlled by me. That would be perfect. It's like return to the past. The fact that politicians are looking for those bubbles, or we have cyclers, or mushroom lovers, or people excited with something else, we will try to listen to what they miss, what they need, how we could help them, what we can offer them to vote for us. That is unbelievable. The politicians are interested having the tools, because in the old systems, when you were a politician, you had a great tube like the TV or the radio. You couldn't communicate with the cyclists, because if they were too few, you couldn't afford an advert. But now you can talk separately to cyclists, to mushroom lovers, and try to improve their lives. The fact that politicians are interested in minorities is a good thing. Some politicians have crazy ideas or ideas that take us backwards. It's nothing new. It is as old as 10, 50 years ago. And the reply to that is not censorship, forcing everybody to read the same book, use the same Russian language. But the solution is more education on the internet, more of us citizens on the internet exchanging opinions with our friends and other people on the social media.
So it's also, for me, education will be also in a smaller scope as emotion or fake news, which is related to emotions, a fuel, all sort of information. And perhaps we have bigger chances to educate people, to find out what are their problems. But also we can become the biggest populists of times. I totally agree with you. Whereas social media and internet give us new challenges and new disadvantages. And just like you, I'm afraid that fake news and different extremists that were not allowed to speak in a social space, articles of extremists were not published. So right now, such an extremist can publish it by himself in the internet. So definitely we have some disadvantages, as each new technology has. But we also need to remember about the advantages of this new system, new technologies, which fully cover all the disadvantages. Let's start with the proofs of that. Say, let's take any widespread social research, European Valley Survey or American equivalents, but huge representative social examinations. We can see that from year to year, people become more and more educated, better informed, less radical, more progressive, more tolerant. All the indicators, if we look at them globally, people become better and better. We become better as a society. So now, how can we merge this fact that we as a society become more and more informed, more tolerant, with another fact that internet is flourishing with fake news? It doesn't matter how many fake news are there in the internet. What is important is how many people believe them. The difference is if 2000 years ago we write some fake news, 2000 years ago people still believe in that fake news. Today, after 5 minutes, one or another friend or another website would quickly rectify this new news. That's why it's not enough to manipulate people for thousands of years with one fake news. That's another thing. We became much more agile in identification of fake news and showing to people that these news are not real and are not true. Yet today, these fake news get to completely different counter-propaganda groups. It's not that the same people get to the same news, but even people that we disagree with, which are on the other side of a political spectrum, even if we think that those people who are on the other side are not smart enough, we can think like that. Those who believe in the worst conspiracy theories, people who were impressed under some information. So now, during the dialogue with these people, we can confront these opinions. And now whole masses of people that were excluded before from social discussion, or even from first social medias, people less rich, less educated, people from smaller settlements. In the past, people from big newspapers, people you could find on television. As a young people, we used to go for a drink in Warsaw, and we were surrounded by people who covered certain level of education and information. Yet groups that were deprived of this information source, that were less educated, still believed in some stories that were showed to us. And right now, thanks to this bigger magnifying glass, we can see more these crazy people, conspiracy theories followers about non-moon landing theories or etc. Now they surprise us, which is understandable. But it does not mean that we have more of these phenomena. When I play with my students, situations, one doctor said that it happens in medicine that from year to year we have an increase of the percentage of the disease in the society. And it's not because, in fact, we have more ill people, but we have better diagnosis. If we have better diagnosis for cancer, let's say if they are better 5 times, we would have 5 times more indicator of people suffering from cancer. But it does not mean that right now we have 5 times less. Okay, but referring to situation from 2 weeks when we were browsing Donald Trump's tweets, we had his warnings. We can see that there is some influence to this freedom world. Yes, it's peculiar fact that you mentioned that opponents of Trump, in my humble opinion, I think that Donald Trump say and publish a lot of things which are harmful for the society as a whole, no matter if you are Democrat or so left-wing socialist. It's like widespreading the conspiracy theories and etc., which I think is very bad for the society. But on the other hand, I would like to highlight that we have a company, Twitter, at this point, which is driven by income. It's not a company that is under any social control. It's managed by a private people. It hires IT specialists without political education. And suddenly this company becomes a censorship that deletes messages or deletes comments that were sent by heads of the state. On that case, I do not agree with that, this particular head of a state, but I don't feel freely with that, so to put it like that. These companies does not represent us, the society, and yet suddenly they become a censorship agent or a dissident that says what a president can say. Another thing, are you afraid of AI development? Well, Pavel, I think that now we approached the subject that requires wider elaboration, and the thing that we should be really worried about, we know about Google applications, Google company, which have its pros and cons. We need to watch their hands, but at the end of the day, we all agree that these technologies improved the situation of the societies. And I believe that AI would solve cancer problem, global warming problem, and a lot of other problems of the society. But later on, it can be the reason of our society end. Why is that? Well, that's because artificial intelligence, just like human one, maybe let's put it other words. I think that AI, just like any other creature, evolving creature, is aimed to consume as much number of energy as it is possible, or to give birth to the maximum amount of their children. You have this situation with plants, with people, with animals. We are divided by technology. We are sharing technology. We are sharing our children, and it is a certain place in our society. And I believe that AI would be also a part of this heritage. AI, which can take from people the most of the coal that we use to generate power for computers. This algorithm would be copied by us most commonly. And now the question is that if AI needs us people to put the coal to the power station, electrical power station, or they can be free from that, perhaps in the future, AI will be able to put that coal to the power station by itself, what I mean, and it can produce its CPUs by its own. Right now, of course, people imagine this Terminator future when your home robot would revolve and pick a knife to attack you. It's not how it will happen. But of course, most of people have, it's like attitude of people toward animals, of course. No one hates like pigeons, for instance, but if you need to build a new road or some new infrastructure, it would cut off a number of trees, for instance. You don't think about their well-being. So without any particular hate or negative emotions, we are keen to make such a decisions. So if we connect the rapid development of AI with the fact that more and more data about us is registered, gathered and classified, segmented, and on the basis of this processed data, we have some formulas of our behavior. Is it not scare you? At the beginning, the thing that computer starts to understand me better than I can do it myself or my family members, I think it would give phenomenal effects at the first. People who are deprived of good psychologists, good healthcare, the computer will be able to fulfill more and more these social roles, which would bring a lot of joy to people. That's why it's one of the reasons why I think we have no return from this future, because AI will come in this marvelous way. Let's forget about AI. No one wants to switch off Facebook. Of course, if right now we switch off Facebook or Google, people would be angry about that. Even simple tools are so convenient for us that we can't imagine a world without it. And this process will go on. Let's imagine a life without Google Maps, without Zoom today, without Google search engine. And tomorrow, you may not be able to imagine your life without psychologists, AI psychologists that can become your good friend if you are a lonely person and live in a smaller settlement. But of course, this ability to manipulate or convince people to different things in a long term can become for us very dangerous. At this danger, at this threat, we will finish our discussion. Michał Kosiński was our provocative panelist during this discussion. Thank you very much. I think that you gave us a lot of food for thought. Whether we agree about that or not, with that, it's for us to decide. Thank you, Paweł. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.